It was just over 2 years ago. The New York Times said it was taking a rare step by publishing an anonymous op-ed by what they said was a senior official in the Trump administration. The op-ed, titled "I Am Part of the Resistance," painted a bleak portrait of White House leadership. Now that author has made himself known and is taking some heat along the way. From the beginning, President Trump vowed to find out who was anonymous, and now he wants action.
In my opinion, he should be prosecuted. He should be prosecuted.
The original buzz about the op-ed died down until this week when the author, Miles Taylor, made himself public. That night, he appeared on CNN with Chris Cuomo.
First, what matters most, certainly to me. You lied to us, Miles.
Back in August, CNN's Anderson Cooper had asked Taylor if he was the anonymous author.
You know,
you're not anonymous.
The president, and I certainly don't want to. I wear a mask for two things, Anderson: Halloweens and pandemics. So no.
By then, Taylor had quit the White House, written a book, and had been hired by CNN as an analyst.
Now, why should CNN keep you on the payroll after lying like that?
I said in the book that if asked, I would strenuously deny I was the author, because the things I said in that book were ideas that I wanted Donald Trump to challenge on their merits.
While Cuomo went on to ask about things Taylor said in the book, he kept circling back to the lying.
But you know what the problem is with having lied is that now you are a liar, and people will be slow to believe you.
Seems it's an even bigger problem for CNN. As for the New York Times calling Miles Taylor a senior White House official, they might have some splaining to do, too. Callie, it seems to me that the networks and the New York Times both got the maximum play out of this thing. You know, everybody was reading this because they thought it was a senior White House official. Everybody was guessing it was Kellyanne Conway or something like that. You know, and then CNN hiring him for the same reason, essentially. He's very smooth, he's attractive, he's well-spoken. But as Chris Cuomo points out, you know, he didn't tell the truth, and CNN is hiring him anyway.
Right. My money was on John Kelly. I just knew that was who it was. But I think it's really the senior official thing. At first I thought maybe not so important, but actually it is. Because if you're part of the resistance, you have to have the power to be part of the resistance. And as a low-level employee, you don't have the power, a lower level. So if it was John Kelly, okay, yeah, you got the power. But if you are a deputy assistant to the Homeland Security person, not so much. I will say this, he had access, so they should have framed him as someone who had access, who was inside, who could observe these things, but he wasn't a resistor in any way that could be meaningful, whether when he was working for Trump or outside, because he never had the power to do so. So I think that is huge, and to your point, both of them got a lot out of it because, you know, they thought he was, you know, somebody from a high-ranking position, but that wasn't fair to the readers of the rest of us, you know.
Callie makes a great point. I have yet to know, and maybe I've just missed it, but what is the meaningful resistance that this guy engaged in? I think this is going to go down on the list of embarrassing New York Times gaffes, of which we've seen a whole heck of a lot. They allowed him to present this incredibly self-serving narrative, set himself up for a book deal, made them look more important than they were, made him look more important than they were. I would love to know what, if anything, was done at the Times to vet his claims before they made it into print. We've seen that the Times is not good at vetting opinion pieces. Again, you know, we may learn more in the coming days. It wouldn't surprise me if this is another example of them not kicking the tires on a column the way they should have.
I agree with both Callie and with Adam. I think it's a hit and an erosion of trust in the New York Times and also to CNN. Look, I believe in properly vetted anonymous sources. If you don't, you bury the truth. I mean, look back at our history, Woodward and Bernstein, Seymour Hersh, I mean, the stories that they have come up with over the years. But in this particular case, to call him a senior administration official just ain't right. He's not. He was 31 years old and has been reported widely. On the day that op-ed came out, published anonymously, he's not even listed in the 64 people who are considered leadership at the Department of Homeland Security. So I think for the Times to classify him as a senior administration official amplified his voice, and therefore we didn't get the proper perspective or context on it, and it's erosion to their, I think, credibility, and also to CNN's. And as much as I cannot sometimes stomach Chris Cuomo, I give him a thumbs up and a rave for pushing him on this issue about lying, and he shouldn't be working there anymore.
Well, I'm feeling pretty good about the identity of Miles Taylor because I thought all along that it was somebody who was in John Kelly's orbit, but not Kelly himself, and that's exactly who it turned out to be. Although I join with all of you in thinking that I thought it was somebody a little bit higher up the food chain than Miles Taylor was. Now, this was something that happened on the watch of former editorial page editor James Bennett. And I think we know that it was just a reign of error when Bennett was in charge of those pages. And this is one more that we can chalk up to the Bennett regime. And it just underscores why it's a good thing that he's no longer there. As far as CNN goes, I don't think this is a black mark on CNN at all if they fire him. They have to get rid of him. There's no way he can stay after this.
Well, it doesn't look like they're going to do that. Callie or anybody who wants to respond to this, it also plays into the president's and other media critics' hands that the New York Times printed a narrative of what they believe is the case, and that is that there's this resistance protesting the president's every move, and we're going to take him down, and we know it's not right. That's what the New York Times thinks. And that is the real reason they printed that thing. And they didn't, it appears like they didn't care what his status really was.
And again, you could each have a very powerful story, not at the same level, for someone inside who was appalled and writing about it. But again, not resisting, that's a different scenario, a different context, but someone who's saying, I am a witness to this. I actually don't have the power to change anything, but I want somebody else to know that some of us inside are appalled. Okay, that's, that's access. You do have the access to see it, but you don't have the power to change it. That's right. A different story.
Last word.
Anonymous has faded. I mean, the fact is people like Jim Mattis, much bigger people than Taylor, under their own name, have come out and said the same thing subsequently. So I don't think that it hates the narrative that there was this resistance inside the White House at all.
All right. Adam, last word.
Dan's point about Anonymous fading is great. I still think it undercuts the narrative that he was trying to put out there. Callie's right. That would have been a perfectly legit story to run. Not as many clicks for the Times and no book deal for our guy Miles.
All right.